Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This morning I'm going to be reacting to a video requested by CarlKen0209. It's called Elden Ring Lore, Perfumers and Omenkillers, made on the Hawkshaw YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out the original video as well as Hawkshaw's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you want to check out my reactions to other Elden Ring content created by YouTubers, yeah, sorry, the playlist card is going to be at the top here. Just click on it and you'll be able to access them. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Here was the secret of happiness, about which philosophers had disputed. Happiness might now be bought for a penny and carried in the waistcoat pocket.
Confessions of an English opium eater.
Portable ecstasies might be had corked up in a pint bottle. The power to alter body and mind with the gifts of nature is like nothing else. If power can corrupt lords and gods, then the power held by healers has its own temptations. Everyone in positions of trust and influence in the lands between will have their own particular vices. The history of the perfumers is a history of healers who cannot swear to have done no harm. The perfumer's power is the ability to influence the mind and the body, but not only of their patients. There are side effects to the craft, both on patient and perfumer. Perfuming is an age-old practice in the lands between. Its influence has dispersed to many cultures throughout Elden Ring, more than we can know. We will share here what we have discovered about perfumers, some who profess to do good, some who descend to depravity, and some who commit such violence that their own emotions need to be silenced.
Is being a perfumer, is it a class? Is it something that you can choose in the beginning of the game? Or is it something that you learn as a skill, as you play the game? I'm just wondering about that. Guys, I haven't played Elden Ring. I'm just in it for the lore. So yeah, if you find that my questions are quite stupid or ignorant, just bear with me. I haven't played the game. I'm only here for the lore. And yeah, I'm just trying to ascertain whether being a perfumer, is it a class that you choose at the beginning of the game, or is it something that you learn as a skill as you continue playing the game? Yeah.
Farewell to smiles and laughter. Farewell to peace of mind. Farewell to hope and to tranquil dreams, and to the blessed consolations of sleep. The history of perfumers in our own world is not a spotless one. Nature creates the purest ingredients, and to make an exceptional perfume you must draw from nature. These ingredients cannot be obtained by someone with an overactive conscience. Some more well-known animals that were slaughtered in history for the sake of perfumes were deer and whales, but the victims are many and diverse. These living, breathing products fell victim to a soaring market price once their scent potential was discovered.
Hopefully nowadays we don't use animals for our perfumes. Hopefully we're using some sort of like a synthetic base, perfume scents. Hopefully. I don't know. I don't know about the perfume industry, guys, but I'm just hoping that nowadays we're using some sort of synthetic replacement for such an enterprise like perfume making business. Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
And a single gland or duct was worth killing the whole beast for. Without other alternatives to meet market demand, greed is always the rule. And as always in a From Software game, if the inspirations in the real world are dark, then we should be ready to descend much deeper into human darkness. Let us discover the depths of the perfumers. In the world of Elden Ring, perfumers come to exist quite early. So too do Miranda flowers, who emerge even earlier than perfumers. We know both of these facts thanks to the description of one item, Miranda powder. Throughout human history, perfumers have prized this pollen.
Miranda powder, material used for crafting items throughout history. Perfumers have prized this extremely fragrant form of Miranda pollen not yet scattered into the air.
Perfumers, Miranda flowers, and inevitably trade around this ingredient has existed in the world almost since records began for this age.
Is that the pollen coming out of the Miranda flower? Eesh. So dramatic though.
Whether this is after the war against the giants, from which the new rulers started its own history, or perfumers emerged even before that date, is unknown. There is no evidence of perfumers fighting in the giant war, but...
Hey, I know the soundtrack. Sorry, Hawkshaw. I'm sorry for cutting you off there like that. But yes, I know the soundtrack. From Age of Mythology, Titan Expansion, right? Yeah, I know this. I know this soundtrack. Good choice.
we cannot be sure. This dating shows that trade around perfumes and the ingredients that make them is very basic to the lands between, even if the secrets of the craft are not widely dispersed.
Perfume bottle. Glass bottles used by perfumers used to seal various scent components, essential vessel for crafting perfume items. The art of perfuming was once jealously guarded in the capital.
The beginnings of perfuming likely begins naturally, starting with accidental discoveries in nature. With simple blind luck and a bit of risky experimentation, just as in our own ancient civilizations, many discoveries are made over time. The effects of pollen, resin, fruits, roots, or any other gifts of nature cannot help but be stumbled upon eventually.
Okay, hold on guys. The room here, it's getting a bit dark. I just need to open the blinds and I'll be back. Just hold on a minute. Okay, hopefully that's a bit better. Okay, let's continue.
Animals get drunk by mistake, and most poisons or delights of nature are intended to be stumbled upon by the plants or animals who made them. They are designed for effect. The effect of Miranda pollen on humans may be pleasant before perfumers work with it, because the Miranda flower needs to tempt its prey within striking distance.
It's prey. What does it eat? And why are humans... why is the pollen so pleasant to human beings? I don't like where this is going.
The discoveries in Elden Ring are different to our world. Scent in Elden Ring can have a much more powerful effect on the mind and body. We shouldn't assume the senses are as limited as in our world. Once the effects of these scents are discovered, these unique natural ingredients are so powerful that they can either heal or harm. To use them on oneself or others can immediately make you a healer, an entertainer, a tormentor, an illusionist, or a dream creator.
Wow. Being a perfumer in Elden Ring is so much more compared to how, being a perfumer in our world is. Perfumers only makes perfume that smells nice and makes you smell nice, makes your car smell nice, makes your house smell nice. But in Elden Ring, it's just so much more. Wow. Okay.
So begins the culture of the perfumers. Though from these simple beginnings we can already smell the seeds of moral rot. One corrupting force is the ingredient that from earliest history to the present day perfumers cannot deny themselves. Miranda flower pollen, their most essential ingredient. It has always commanded a price, and perfumers have always paid it. But the cost to produce is stated clearly in the item description. The plant is a man-eating Miranda flower, and
man-eating. Wow.
The Miranda flower's ashes item description leaves no doubt. Spirits of sweet little Miranda flowers, carnivorous blossoms that feed upon human flesh.
They creep slowly, scattering toxic pollen, vulnerable to fire. Do take care of the little darlings. Ha! Right.
This means that perfumers must harm in the first step of their healing process. The other corrupting aspect is the sheer potency of the craft. A perfumer in a position of trust has such power over others, over their body and mind, that anyone would be tempted. Not to mention, in a sea of supply, the thought must arise to influence one's own mind. These unavoidable temptations will always stalk the perfumers, and many will not be able to resist. Miranda flowers themselves deserve to be discussed. These flowers are referred to in item descriptions and ashes as though they are sentient. The item descriptions are sarcastic about the Miranda flowers, calling them sweet and little darlings. But we doubt this sarcasm applies to whether the Miranda flowers are conscious. They can move and react to us if we are aggressive towards them. They seem to have a relationship with the various sects of perfumers, staying non-aggressive even with close contact, and likely while perfumers harvest some of their pollen. Given their diet requirements, it is likely to be a symbiotic relationship, and the flowers can understand not to bite the hand that feeds them.
Definitely these plants are sentient. They understand friend from foe. They understand that, this particular person, this perfumer, is here to feed me, and I will be giving him my pollen. And, they have that symbiosis relationship. It understands what's going on. It's almost like a domesticated animal, if I can say that. Yeah, like a cat or a dog, but instead of a cat or a dog, it's a flower that eats humans. Wait, do the humans have to be alive or dead, or does it matter, or it doesn't really matter whether they're dead or alive? The fact is that it's eating humans, and only humans. Okay.
It is also probable that their pollen is so potent precisely because they have aspects of humanity within them, coursing through them. Not only do Miranda flowers feed on human flesh, they may have a human origin. A cut content item describes who may be the first of the species. Miranda, maiden of the flower crucible, is said to have been the very first of this breed. In-game, they are called Miranda flowers, which is a human name. It is also a name beginning with M, which is similar to Melania and Millicent, who Gowry states can bloom. To what, if any extent, there is some genetic or environmental crossover between these women and Miranda flowers is a mystery for now.
It's a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. With the Miranda flower, maybe this person, the first person who became the Miranda flower, maybe that person was blessed, if I can say that, by the crucible. Like how the misbegotten and the omens are also blessed or they've been bestowed or touched by the crucible. So maybe it's the same situation here, where this Miranda lady, when she was born, she probably had flowers coming out of her arm or something, and then one day she just totally transformed into one big flower. Maybe something like that. Yeah.
But there is some core humanity in Miranda flowers, and indeed one flower is literally called Miranda. We find her so close to the other boss in the room that they could almost be talking, and yet she does not aggress to him. If there is some core humanity before this transformation to flowers, it would likely make the pollen all the more effective on humans. The innovation of perfuming comes from nature first. The essential plants and gardens exist in the wild, well before heavy cultivation or a community and culture around perfumes develops. Even today, the Traveller's Robe says that this travelling perfumer was searching for new gardens in the wild, with new plants. It is natural to find pockets of certain plants in nature, and at first it will have been wild foraging that fed the craft. Harvesting these lucky pockets of abundance, and occasionally natural gardens, gives the perfumers their start. If the forefathers of perfuming are not in Leyndell, or the city that may have been Leyndell before the Erdtree, the capital city makes sure to have all the perfumers under its roof before the craft spreads elsewhere.
A glass bottles used by perfumers used to seal various scent components, essential vessel for crafting perfume items. Okay, the art of perfuming was once jealously guarded in the capital. Yeah.
As with every craft, a lot of experimentation begins in these early stages. With time, a whole range of ingredients are found to be useful, everything from glowing moss to formic rock. Many more are surely yet to be discovered even today. Unfortunately, many that are found to be useful are also dangerous to find or toxic to handle. This immediately makes their supply difficult and their purchase expensive. Soon, a simple solution is found, and perfumers start cultivating their own gardens, where they can grow their own supply of ingredients. This cuts out the complexity of sourcing themselves, or the cost of a middleman. The value of the ingredients is still so high, and the process of growing the plant still so morally unpleasant, that they build and grow these gardens in secret, protected from theft and the judgment of the public.
Yeah, they don't want the public to know that their plants eat humans. Ugh.
Whether hidden on the fringes of the highlands, or obscured by shadows inside caves, the flowers blossom in secret, waiting to impart their scent. Of course, the perfumers can't grow everything, however, and there will be a market for selling certain risky or hard-to-find ingredients to perfumers. Even with their own gardens, products which can influence the mind will always have demand which outstrips supply. So a commerce continues to rise around perfumers and perfuming, with ingredients coming from as far as the Eternal City and the Angel. This diversity of supply gives the perfumers the interactions and connections to influence and be influenced, to learn from, teach, and be corrupted.
I can see why the capital would value the perfumers and their skills and techniques so much, and why they would guard it jealously. Because, you could say it's like an intellectual property that produces a lot of influence, a lot of power, and a lot of income for the city. And of course, the nobility of Leyndell need the perfumers for healing and for other purposes, maybe like to get high or something. And, it kind of reminds me of how Carthage, the city of Carthage, or the Carthaginian Empire, also had a particular advantage compared to other Mediterranean empires of their time, where they had advanced shipbuilding. They had the most advanced shipbuilding. They had the most advanced form of production of ships that could set sail in the Mediterranean Sea. And, they guarded that information. They guarded that technology jealously from all the other empires that were around them during that time, around the Mediterranean Sea. It's only when they had their Punic wars with the Romans, when the Romans acquired that technology on how to create the same sort of vessels, did they, their power base start to dwindle, because that piece of technology that brought them to this level of empire building has now been copied and pasted by the Romans. The Romans now have the same sailing technology, and they're using it against the Carthaginians, and they got defeated. So I can see also with the capital city of Leyndell in Elden Ring, also keeping it safe, close to their chest, making sure that no other empire or kingdom has this knowledge, because if they do, they will copy, they will paste, they will have their own perfumers, and it's going to compete with Leyndell, and maybe their economic base, their influence, and their power will be diverted to another kingdom in the lands in between, or beyond the lands in between. So I can understand why they would want to keep something like this close to them. Interesting.
The capital seeks to jealously guard the craft of the perfumers. The first reason is because of its immense power, well beyond mere healing. It is not simply, as in the eyes of the many, a blessed apothecary. This fortunate opinion of the public gives the impression of something mild, but a means of changing the mind, the emotions, altering the lens with which a person or people see the world. Such a power ought to be guarded. It might even be useful to have the general public perceive it as simply another form of healing. What it is believed to be truly is, and might become, are all different. The other reason for this jealousy is because of the natural interconnectedness when a craft needs ingredients from across the lands.
You want to be the center, you want to be the spider in this web of trade of these types of materials needed by the perfumers. You don't want to be part of the linkage, you want to be that center. So yeah.
Have to be overprotective of what is locked in a basement, but the perfumers need to acquire product from many different corners of the world, and Leyndell doesn't want this power seeded elsewhere. One ingredient that perfectly illustrates the risk is a silver tear husk, used even today in Leyndell perfume inventions, which meant contact with a city that eventually committed heresy. Some steps the capital takes are very common steps for a society wishing to maintain loyalty. As well as keeping costs low, the cultivation of ingredients as close as possible to the capital will stop those trying to tempt perfumers away with offers. The Perfumer's Grotto, a prime example of a perfumer-run cultivation, sits just outside the capital walls, at the closest possible point to the capital where such wild and dangerous plants can be grown. The capital also makes sure that the path of becoming a perfumer is one that takes a lot of sunken cost. It doesn't allow a perfumer to be accredited, to earn the respect, until they have reached a very high level of training. A long commitment to achieve a license is always a sunken cost, and what takes time to earn is hard to give up. A position of respect in society, the anchor of responsibility and pride, a reliable craft to earn their way, a feeling of doing good. All of this will prevent perfumers from straying, for the most part. Their outfits signify their duty and their allegiance. The erdtree is proudly displayed on their apron. The weight of the robe and even the chains upon it remind them of their responsibility.
So not only physically are the perfumers being kept in the capital, but also mentally they're being kept in the capital. You know, they're being told that the only way you'll be respected, the only way you'll be recognized, the only way you will be valued for your work is if you work in the capital. If you accomplish all that is required of you as a perfumer in the capital, you will only be safe and have the freedom of your craft in the capital. If you go beyond the capital, if you go beyond the lands in between, you will be hunted down and probably killed, either by the Leyndell Empire, if I can say that, or by other kingdoms beyond the lands in between. So yeah, they're being kept mentally, they're being kept physically within the capital.
Say goodbye to the center of perfumer learning, and all of the social benefits of the capital wouldn't be a common thought. And if you considered it, you would be risking the wrath of the most powerful faction in the world. Most of the perfumers would stay loyal. As the culture and craft of the perfumers develops over time, long periods of time, it becomes incomparably richer and deeper. The evidence is all around the capital. Whole rooms are devoted to perfumer work, mountains of books and scrolls, complex plant cultivation, custom-made bottles and diffusers,
Wow, that's a big one.
The role of perfumer has progressed to one that has a depth which, taken far enough, truly makes a master. Bottles have been made, likely of an extremely complex design, to operate the mixing and timing. The container may be what allows the nuance of a perfume's creation. Like the delicate crafting of a firework, how it releases itself over time is likely how the effect is achieved.
I can't really see how the player uses the bottle. I mean, do you shake it and then it comes out of the bulbous end of it, or do you shoot it like what happens? How do you use the bottle?
As we travelled the lands between, we cannot make a perfumer concoction without these essential bottles. Such is the level of even this small aspect of the craft. The healers at this point work with both body and mind, some to such a level that they become renowned. For the most part, these masters play their roles in society as is expected of them, and the perfumers enjoy a stable period of history. But, at some point, this piece is troubled by the arrival of a new type of creature in the world: omens. Omens are human, or born to humans, but they appear monstrous, horned, and brutish. They are viewed as cursed and unclean by the society of Leyndell and the lands between. A newborn of any social class can suffer, be they royal or commoner, and both do suffer. Please don't hate me, or curse me. A commoner's omen child has its horns amputated, with most dying in the process. If they survive, they may be used for their brute strength as adults.
Why can't they just, trim the horn? They don't have to amputate the entire thing out of the skull. You can just trim it down. Like it's like a nail. You get a nail clipper, you just clip. So you just clip. No, you just clip the horn off. You don't have to. Anyways, okay. Elden Ring.
Royals keep their horns, avoiding the operation, and so most survive. They are allowed to live, but it is not a good life. They are locked up and hidden away deep below the capital for the rest of their days. Some special royals even have magic seals made, binding them to the very ground. Of course, we can presume that for the first omens, and certainly for the first royal omens, no system was in place. It was a totally new thing to have mothers giving birth to omens. Who would know what to do? The first royal omen to be born wouldn't have been locked away. After all, a mother wouldn't give up so fast. Even of an omen, the prattling pate, "You're beautiful," aptly describes a mother's emotions: unconditional love, unrestrained assurance. A mother would want the omen healed. And who are the healers to the royals of Leyndell? The perfumers. To this very day, some perfumers go on to seek a cure. The healing would have been attempted using every bit of ingenuity the perfumers possessed, but it failed. Omens seemed, and still seem, to be incurable. So began the amputation.
Did they consider that, because this is the power from the crucible, is there any way for them to acquire material from the crucible tree? Because the earth tree is now the outer layer of, the tree bark, if I can say that. But on the inner layer, it is the crucible, right? So they can just take a piece of that and start experimenting with it and seeing how they can use it to cure the misbegotten and the omen. I'm just putting it out there, guys. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but yeah, you guys in the comment section, you guys can tell me. Yeah.
And imprisonment of the omens, respective to social class. A simple, expedient solution. The emergence of omens in history was a long time ago. We know they have been around since antiquity, thanks to a certain famous gentleman we will discuss in a moment. During this period of attempted healing, and in the time since, the perfumers got to know the omens. Amputating their horns allowed the perfumers to learn the nature of the horns. Influencing their minds allowed them to learn their emotions. Sitting beside them and communicating with them allowed them to learn their dreams. The dagger talisman states, "A sense of mercy is a catalyst for bloodlust." How interesting that this item also refers to healers, in this case surgeons, whose roles warped into those who delivered the merciful finishing blow that grew bloodlust within them. The position of healer is always a position of trust. Needing to be healed means you are inherently more vulnerable than when you are healthy. A sufferer will not show weakness to an enemy if they can help it. They will not beg, "Please don't hate me," or curse me. They will not reveal their sadness, or the fear in their nightmares. But to a healer, At some point, the omens did reveal their fears, the deep fears of their dream, and one perfumer, a master craftsman of the mind and emotions, decided to use this knowledge for a whole new purpose. By this point, omen births had become more numerous. If any were born outside Leyndell, they may have been beyond the possibility of early amputation. Even those born within the capital might keep their horns. If a mother kept the child's secret, or the pregnancy secret from the beginning, for fear of the consequences if the child was born omen, it would add to the mature omen numbers. It was inevitable that adult omen would increase in the vast lands of the world. There needed to be an additional solution. Leyndell's amputations and prisons were not enough, so one perfumer stood up to try and solve this problem.
So solving the problem requires Omenkillers? Because here in the title it says Elden Ring lore, Perfumers and Omenkillers. Wow, so culling the omen is the solution. I'm afraid that this is just a stopgap measure. It's not really going to stop the situation. It's not going to remedy the situation, because people are still going to continue giving birth to omen children. So it'll be a perpetual situation where there's always going to be someone having to kill omen people. Always. So they need to find a cure. They need to find a cure with the crucible bark or the crucible tree within the earth tree, and maybe there'll be a way. I don't know. Because killing these omen is just not the answer, really. You're just putting a pause on something that's going to keep on building up and just crash onto you. So yeah.
The man to take the first step in a new craft was called Rollo. Rollo had worked with emotions as a perfumer for long enough to reach the highest rank and status. He was a master, but his renown extended beyond his peers. He was literally famous. So Rollo embarked on a new task, a new solution, and he brought all his learning and skill with him. To begin his task, he needed to twist up his conscience and silence his emotions. After a lifetime of changing emotions, strengthening them, releasing them, he now attempts to delete them. Remarkably, Rollo succeeds, and then begins with total calm to hunt omens and kill them. It would be simple to think of Rollo as a villain. The omens are not chosen to be born as they are, and can be gentle, even moral characters who do what they believe is right for Leyndell and the lands between. To hunt and slaughter them makes Rollo seem a twisted soul who takes pleasure in the butchery and mayhem of his new craft. Except that he couldn't have. He couldn't feel any pleasure after imbibing his physic. So why start this new journey at all? Omens themselves might explain it. It is obvious from many items in dialogue that omens are not all monstrous. They are sentient, as intelligent as any other characters in the world. Kept underground, away from language, culture, and human interaction, anyone would be mute, confused, and aggressive. So they have been born and dealt a very poor hand, and the world, for the most part, believes them cursed and unclean, beings that may signify or bring about a terrible future for the land. Now, while it is important to be empathetic when trying to understand a From Software game, what if this hate or revulsion wasn't totally mistaken? Let's look at the possibility that omens are a risk to the world.
Omens are not necessarily a risk to the world, but it's what is growing out of them that is a risk. The horns. I remember the Dung Eater was using omen horns for his own nefarious reasons, and I think that's the only kind of proper example of how I would see omens as a threat. It's not them, it's what is growing out of them, their horns, But yeah, they're not necessarily the threat to the world. The world has already been destroyed, by Queen Marika and her children. So yeah.
Or to the order of the world as it is now. Morgott is a character who wants to protect the Erd Tree and the order of the world. Everything he says and does seems to fit this pattern. And what about his sword? It states that Morgott recanted and sealed away his cursed blood. Cursed here isn't a quote or an opinion, and Morgott himself did the sealing and recanting. During our fight with him, at a certain point, we hurt him enough for his curse to emerge. He says,
"The thrones, stained by my curse, such shame I cannot bear."
From the mouth of an omen, it is called a curse, and he says he is ashamed. Is this indoctrination? Or is this simply that omen blood and horns are counter to, or a risk to, the Erd Tree and
I say both.
the current order? Every item description that deals with omen horns calls them hideous and, most frequently, loathsome. Once again, these words are not in quotes. It doesn't seem to be an opinion, as though, under the current rules, they are so, just as something is heavy or light in our world. One omen boss, the Fell Twins, shows the stark difference of horns and what leaving them on can allow to happen. The omen with horns has spirits emerging and flying at us. The amputated omen merely attacks with his axe. Perhaps what is loathsome is the effect that can be achieved with the horns, and is therefore to some extent inherent to the horns. The biggest sign that omens may be a threat to the balance of things is the seedbed curse. The Dung Eater manages to apply this curse. This man is no master craftsman, and yet even him, with just a handful of omen horns, can afflict someone with a tender pox. This pox is so powerful that it prevents dead souls returning to the Erd Tree, leaving them forever cursed. So understanding omens fully is for another time, but it seems the things in the lands between are complex. It is unlikely that the prejudice against omens is based purely on looks. Let us return to Rollo and look at his choices in the light of omens being a real risk to the state of the world. We must remember, Rollo was a renowned perfumer. This status should give us a clue to the type of choice the man made. He has no need to change his work for greater fame. If he sought to commit depraved acts, or enjoyed causing suffering, he was already in a position of trust with his patients. He could have easily enjoyed causing pain keeping the position he had, and no one would have suspected. In fact, he has a lot to lose if he makes a big change. His whole life, his relationships, the professional respect he has earned, the freedom to practice what he is best at, all of it would have been lost if he followed a path of violence for his own enjoyment. It may instead have been Rollo because it required someone capable of halting their emotions. Leyndell may have required someone who was up to the task. He alone at that point in history had the ability to do this, so he took up a role that, despite its unpleasantness, Leyndell viewed as necessary. A solution was needed, even if it was appalling. But it was in pursuit of this solution that Rollo acted, not from evil. Rollo doesn't turn off his emotions because he is unfeeling. He turns them off because he does feel empathy for the omens. They are not to blame for their birth, and he knows it. This empathy prevents him from being effective. It gets in the way of what he believes, or what the capital believes, is necessary. Whether that belief is right or wrong is to be explored with a look dedicated to omens. But for perfumer Rollo, imbibing his physic was a sacrifice. Facing such a nightmarish labour, he stops his emotions, all of them, sacrificing all the good ones in the process, so he can operate unflinchingly. The perfumers are not against this, and nor is Leyndell. After Rollo paves the way, the perfumers split off a branch into a new profession, the sect of Omenkillers. To this day, the Omenkillers still have a working relationship with the Leyndell perfumers, as we see them together in various perfumer outposts, the most notable example being the Perfumers' Grotto on the edge of the capital. When we meet the Omenkillers themselves, they certainly operate with a ruthlessness that seems void of emotion.
Look how big those blades are. Wow. And they've got the omen horns on them as well. Crazy.
What is immediate on first impression is their equipment. It is certainly unique. Their garb honours Rollo, their founder. The robe is thick, like Rollo's, thick enough leather to take the impact of omen horns, and traditional, like the perfumer's robes. Aprons are worn by doctors and healers, experimenters with volatile substances, and butchers. The perfumers have now filled all of these categories. The Omenkiller mask is inspired from knowledge picked up while attempting to help omens. Secrets about their nightmares, shared to perfumers in positions of trust, are now turned against them. Hideous and taunting, the mask is in the appearance of an evil spirit which haunts the omen in their dreams, called an elder. What an elder is, or elder of what, is uncertain. The curving horn is omen-like, and the face is twisted in a mocking expression.
But why are they making their masks this way? For what purpose? I mean, if they're going to be killing omens, why do you want them to be seeing a mask of their nightmares? Is it to make them fearful so that they're easier to kill? Hey, okay.
So that the Omenkiller seems to take pleasure in the violence, which, of course, they cannot. But the effect on the hunted is undeniable. The perfumers are practiced at influencing the mind and the emotions, and
yeah, I see now.
those lessons carry over beyond perfumes. Key words in the omen items, butchery, slaughter, implies a great deal of ease, as well as a sense of the human to non-human. We butcher a cow and slaughter a pig, and the word butchery may imply some usage of the corpse. Despite the danger of their horns, there may be some use in them too, to perfumers or to Omenkillers themselves. At the very least, the Omenkillers use these horns to fashion their weapons. Their monstrous cleavers are likely very effective against omens, like with like, just as sharp dragon scales do extra damage to dragons. Perhaps the horns may nullify the slayin's chances to return to the Erdtree, not to mention the fear the weapon would create as an Omenkiller charged forward to cull your species' numbers. These hunts go on and on.
And there's no end in sight. Like I said before, many more omen children are going to be born. It's just going to be this perpetual cycle of these omen killers killing omen. More omen are born, killing them. More omen are born, killing them. There's no end.
Rollo and those inspired by him, right until the present day. Another cultural impact the perfumers have on the world is on the beginnings of the deathbed companions. When healing fails, a perfumer may ease the passing of the dying. They have all the tools to make the passage to death gentler. They can influence emotions and sensations, relaxing the patient, calming them, dulling the pain, or even perhaps replacing it. We find perfumers in Leyndell doing this same kindness. Enemies who we cannot do damage to, but who are not fully dead, receive perfumer attention to calm the mind, to give them a gentle passing. This is said to be similar to the origins of the deathbed companions, implying that the deathbed companions may have discovered their own craft by simply helping those at death's door feel better, only to then discover what was possible. The Baldachin's blessing is described as a favour which allows one to forget any aches and pains, which is remarkably like the perfumer's last recourse. Is this just a coincidence, and the deathbed companions emerged independently from the perfumers, and the two are unrelated to each other?
Yes, I think it is a coincidence. For example, the Egyptians built pyramids. The South American empires of old, like the Maya, the the Inca, sorry, the Aztecs, they built pyramids as well. They are divided by an ocean and by continents. But somehow, some way, by coincidence, these empires on the African continent and on the South American continent, they built pyramids. Yes, they are different in terms of their form, because with the Aztecs it was like step pyramids, and with the Egyptians it was just a straight, formed pyramid. And you could say there's something similar with the deathbed companions and with the perfumers. Yes, their skills are quite similar. However, they might have been developed in different types of ways through time, through distance, you know. So I don't necessarily think that one influenced the other. I think that they developed these skills, in their own little bubbles, and it's just by coincidence that it does seem similar in terms of how to heal, or not really heal, but give people comfort before they die. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're being influenced by the perfumers. I think that the deathbed companions developed these techniques through their own innovation, through their own study, through their own practice. Just like with the perfumers, they also did it through their own studies, through their own practice, and gathering all the material required. Yeah. So it's just by coincidence, I think. Yeah.
We think it is more than a coincidence, and that perfumers some time ago had a real influence on the origins of the deathbed companions. When we find the deathbed dress, we are in Leyndell, near perfumers and perfumer rooms. We are in a building which is decorated with images of elegant flowers with their pollen stamens on display. And there is an omen killer nearby. On top
That's also a coincidence, though. No. Just because there's an omen killer nearby, and because the rooms have flowers and other things that you'd consider being part of the perfumers. But we must remember that the perfumers had a strong influence in the city. They had a strong influence in the capital city. Their way of doing things, their culture, their technology was used by the most powerful and influential people in the capital. So, of course, whatever is associated with the perfumers will also be used culturally throughout the entire city, right?
top of that, when we find Fia, she has plants that we also find in perfumer rooms, and perfumer incense diffusers.
Yes, because they are using this technology for their environment to smell nice, to be comfortable for who's ever coming over to the deathbed companions, so that those people are comfortable, they feel safe, and they're able to, be part with Fia and her process of becoming her process as a deathbed companion. So this is a coincidence as well. I'm saying this, guys. I don't know. Maybe I am wrong. In the comment section, you guys can, correct me. But I think that this is just a coincidence. This is just, the influence of the perfumers in the capital city. People want their homes to smell nice. People want to have flowers in their homes. And the people who have the best perfumes, the people who have the best flowers are the perfumers. Maybe I'm wrong.
Much of her equipment looks very like what is in Leyndell perfumer rooms. While we cannot know the exact history, it seems that the role of perfumers had an impact on the creation of the deathbed companions, and there was at least a flow of knowledge from perfumers towards the deathbed companions for some time. The emergence of deathbed companions happened long ago enough for them to embed themselves in the culture, and in some lands become deeply respected. This takes deep time. In Fia's land, it is seen as a sacred act. This likely puts it well before the Shattering. For something to grow as a craft, to spread throughout the lands, develop its own techniques and garments, earn respect, and eventually be sought after by champions and lords, means its beginnings were long ago. Indeed, there has even passed enough lifetimes to understand that only once in a lifetime does a deathbed companion give up a radiant Baldachin's blessing. Once again, the influence of the perfumers seems to have diffused everywhere. What other cultural splintering happens during the perfumers' history? One subtle one is noticeable today. During their service, the perfumers meet others who serve, the pages. During Leyndell's long existence, the perfumers and the pages both attend to nobles and lords. They would inevitably talk and get to know each other, and the evidence of the pages' relationship with perfumers is obvious everywhere. Pages are found in perfumer rooms in the capital more frequently than perfumers themselves, and can be found face to face over a bar, perhaps about to share a pint. Another splintering is towards anti-Erdtree sentiment. While most anti-Leyndell perfumers arise much later, it is inevitable that some perfumers resent their masters and wish to explore perfuming further without regulations. Some arts are banned by Leyndell, and much of this banning is unlikely to be during the War of the Shattering. Once perfuming spreads to the enemy, to whom Leyndell's authority doesn't reach, a ban wouldn't make sense. With such high numbers, certain perfumers would always stray from the straight and narrow. After all, with so many ingredients just sitting there, it's only a matter of time before some of them start testing on themselves. Indeed, Poison Spray Mist reveals that even when perfumer arts were still restorative, perfume powder was held in the mouth before being expelled.
Crazy.
If healing with morphine required the same method, how long until there would be such problems? Given time and overuse, some self-destruction cannot be avoided. The seeds of depravity and heresy now start to appear amongst the perfumers.
But I think the seeds of depravity began the moment they had a relationship or a symbiosis with this plant, this Miranda plant. Giving dead bodies or alive human beings to this plant to consume. That's where the depravity started. And it became normal as it was sanctioned by the capital, because the powerful nobility of Leyndell wanted the perfumers to be at their optimal efficiency, where they could help them with whatever ailments they have as medical situations, or maybe they just want to sleep or they want to be high. And the only way the perfumers can perform at the optimal efficiency is if they have this pollen from the Miranda flower. So these guys were already doing bad things long ago. It started from the very beginning. Yeah.
Of course, even perfumers who stay loyal to Leyndell and stick to the rules cannot claim a clear conscience. They too show the signs of overexposure. If the substances are held in the mouth even for restorative arts, then perhaps we cannot blame them. But we cannot deny the ingredients for these medicines, flowers that feed on human flesh. Are these perfumers better than those straying from the rules?
No.
Or are they just better perceived in the eyes of the capital?
Better perceived because those in the capital, especially the powerful people, they need this perfume or perfumers for their own personal needs. And therefore they'll turn a blind eye to how the perfumers acquire this material.
To heal a lord is worth more than 100 commoner lives, no doubt. And how much of a commoner's time or well-being is worth a lord's good sleep or vibrant daydream? Whatever uses the perfumers put the pollen to, the plants must be fed. So perfumers and their sects range from the hypocritical to the gruesome. But all of this will turn for the worse with the Shattering. As the demigods rise against each other, a great war breaks out. The perfumers still loyal to Leyndell fight for the capital. What was once a craft reserved for healing with occasional deviants in the ranks, is now recruited for warfare. Given shields of gold to mark their loyalty and their importance to the capital, their new war equipment is light. It is meant to be used by the body of a healer, not a warrior. Most carry an Erdsteel dagger, light and in the past reserved for nobles. Once again, we see the respect Leyndell has for its perfumers. The shield they wear is highly immune boosting. In warfare, just as in healing, there will be exposure to your own product. To help the war effort, the masters among the perfumers create new weapons with old knowledge and old tools. Large scent diffusers, once used for healing perfumes, are turned into giant siege arrows.
Oh, there they are, yeah. At the top there. Oh, okay, wow.
To spread toxins amongst the enemy.
It's kind of not really effective at, distributing the perfume from the diffuser. It's not, it's just like a fountain. It's just throwing all the contents in one spot. It's not spreading. So, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's a really good weapon. Okay, if there's like a lot of them concentrated in a particular area like this, then yeah, it can work.
As the war drags on, Leyndell realizes that it cannot win this war without further compromise. The law against fire, banned in the culture of the Erd Tree, is relaxed to help the perfumers and others have greater impact. After this, the formidable perfumer bolt is designed and shared with other warriors, still memorably used to this day by those close to the perfumers, the pages. Perfumers also become involved in gargoyle development. This is at the latest during the shattering, if not before. The gargoyles are held together with corpse wax, a patchwork of heroes, a product that immediately has the air of perfumers. The moral questions that a product like corpse wax poses are familiar to the perfumers, and they are well trained at ignoring such questions. Once the law against fire is lowered during the shattering, they certainly lend their creative hand to these gargoyles, arming them with perfumer sparks. One such gargoyle is outside a perfume room in Leyndell, guarding the perfumer treasure trove within. It emits totally visually unique perfume spark fire, a weapon beyond any doubt created by the perfumers. These gargoyles
It's so pretty, but dangerous.
are also found in the Nameless Eternal City. And the twin Valiant gargoyles use a poison attack that looks a lot like the perfumer's creation. New flammable aromatics and techniques are devised and bottled, used to wound and kill.
But are perfumers a powerful, is it a powerful skill or a class to choose in Elden Ring? I'm just wondering. It's cool what they're doing, throwing perfume at you and it blows up into fire and yeah, it looks cool, but I don't think it's enough, really. Especially with someone who has a shield and a sword, or someone who's using magic. I don't see the value of being a perfumer. Yeah, sorry guys. If you guys like being a perfumer, I'm sorry. I don't see it. I don't see the value of being something like this, in Elden Ring.
Beautiful and deadly, we ourselves experience how effective they can be. But the greatest power of the perfumers, as ever, is the power over the mind. By this time, even the most honourable perfumer knows that the influence of perfumes on emotions is profound. During each healing they have felt it. This craft of emotional engineering is now made into military weapons, both against the enemy and for allies. The perfumers develop concoctions designed to influence the mind of the Erd Tree soldiers. One they still use to this day, a staple of the shattering, has a potent morale-raising effect that makes those accustomed to it fearless in the face of death. To give the troops such belief, such emotional strength, is a weapon of extreme power. How much bigger would an enemy army have to be to win against an army totally unafraid of death? Any enemy commander would take pause. It is also likely, while we don't find any, that there are perfumes developed to influence the enemy's mind. We can see, judging from the colour, that it is poison fumes being emitted from the giant perfume projectiles. But amongst all the inventions, why not make a perfume to instill fear and panic in the enemy's hearts? If it
He has a point. He has a point.
wasn't invented, it should have been. Thanks to the power of influencing the minds on the battlefield, perfumers are promoted to commanders, and it is stated that they were exceptional. Even more bizarre than healers starting with man-eating flowers as a first ingredient, is healers becoming leaders of war. In the chaos.
Wow. So from a perfumer to a general. Wow. The social ladder, the climbing ladder here is on another level in this Lands in Between. Really, you can be a perfumer and then you can just be a general just like that. Well, it's not just like that, but it's a process. Still, being a perfumer, you can be a doctor, you can be a warrior, you can be a general. It's amazing.
Of war, it is more than rules that start to fragment. Deviant perfumers have been a minority before the Shattering. However, during the war, Leyndell can no longer jealously guard this craft successfully, and this begins to change. But after the perfumers were drafted into service during the Shattering, the art became widely practiced throughout the Lands Between.
Pandora's box has been opened.
The craft of perfuming now spreads across the land. Removed from the laws of the Erd Tree, these new perfumers take a powerful tool that has occasionally dipped into depravity and twist it all the way to heresy.
And with this, coming into the fore, the influence and the power of the capital city is also being diminished, because this very important intellectual property that they owned is now being shared across the entire Lands in Between and beyond. And now this very powerful institution and very powerful skills and techniques are no longer belonging only to the capital. Now it belongs to everybody. And just like what I was talking about, the Carthaginian Empire, how they had vessels that were far superior to any other empire in the Mediterranean Sea, until the Romans acquired that knowledge, acquired that technology, and they made their own ships. And thus the power and the relevancy of the Carthaginian Empire dwindled because of that situation. And the same thing is happening here with Leyndell and its perfumer institutions. Now it's being spread across the Lands in Between, and almost anyone now can become a perfumer. Yeah.
Some start as dissenters, some outsiders, but all begin to experiment with what is possible, and in numbers never seen before. Over time, as the Shattering drags on and on, they invent bizarre and warped techniques, described as so perilous that no physician would even attempt them. This makes it sound that simply the invention of these perfumes is extremely dangerous to the creator. One false step during its conception and you may die in the process. Just imagine how perilous poison spray mist would have been in its early invention stage. As it stands today, poison, as opposed to healing products, must be held in the mouth before being expelled.
Madness. Madness.
As the innovator, what a deadly road to tread. When depraved perfumers are employed as mercenaries, they influence the emotions of their troops just as Leyndell perfumers do, but with much more extreme techniques. They can take a man whose limbs are frozen stiff with fear, taunt him, and put them in a state of fervour. The result are instant berserkers, ready to be used against the enemy. With a name like Blood Boil, it isn't pleasant to think of how this perfume may work. Throughout this period, the depraved perfumers consume more and more of their own supply. As they imbibe their own spices, they descend into self-destruction, earning the name the culture of the Lands Between gives them, depraved perfumers. It cannot be denied that they invent some interesting perfumes. Morally questionable at the least, if not repellent, they nevertheless develop some of the most effective recipes we will ever find. It is said that depraved perfumers work for themselves alone, but there is evidence that they worked with troops on the battlefield in the Shattering. We can assume that it's likely that during the Shattering some chose to work as mercenaries, not truly loyal, just getting paid. To this day we find depraved perfumers following their own interests and trading their talents for gain. Just as with Leyndell perfumers, an economy around these depraved perfumers and their arts rises as well. Depraved perfumers have a longer shopping list and far fewer scruples. Both of these facts are good for commerce. The evidence is that business is booming too. In the lands between, depraved perfumers have a much higher drop rate for all items.
Whoa, look at that. A normal perfumer can't even compete.
When you discard morals, it is much easier to procure goods that cost human lives. One new ingredient that requires death to obtain, almost human death, or perhaps more than human, is an ingredient from living jars. Depraved perfumers need the broken shards and innards of these jars to make new inventions. When there is any new payoff, you can bet that those without scruples will emerge to profit. Poachers start hunting the jars to meet the demand. The depraved perfumers become in league with these poachers, paying them for what they harvest from the jars they kill, effectively a corpse for cash business. It's nothing new for perfumers, but the depraved like to do things bigger. There are likely to be many jar-related perfumes, but we only discover one during our time in the lands between. An undeniably powerful perfume. Costly, but undeniably powerful.
It turns you into some sort of like a metal being, or like you're protected with a metal shield, or a steel shield, or I don't know. Wow, okay. Looks chrome. Alright.
Interestingly, like other Leyndell aromatics, it is made with an ingredient that has humanity coursing through it, just like Miranda flower pollen. This essence of humanity that fed the plant and built the jar, or channeled through them, seems to work well in perfumes.
There's no escape. There's no escape when you have to make perfumes. You need human essence in it, whether it's from the jar or it's from the Miranda plants. There's no escape, and thus the depravity cannot be washed away. It will always be there because of what they have to do to get what they want.
Humanity channeled through almost humanity. Poachers don't care for the mysteries of the perfumer's craft, but they know depraved perfumers will pay the price, and maybe even some perfumers of Leyndell will too. Just as with earlier in history, rising values affect supply, but this time it is the pots who will use secrecy to cut off others profiting. The jar community adapts to these conditions. Some move to a secret village in order to avoid being poached, and likely many others do the same if they are out there. Though the village we find doesn't stay secret forever, unfortunately. But in some justice, the Oriza side tomb has been taken over by warrior jars. At some point, warrior jars catch one unfortunate inventor or carrier of the iron jar aromatic perfumer recipe, with what is likely 2 other poachers. They lock them up until death takes them. Revenge is sweet.
I mean, you could have just killed them. Why do you want them to suffer starvation and dehydration until death? Like, wow, okay.
There is some evidence that depraved perfumers, or at least one perfumer since the outbreak of the Shattering, worked in league with Rykard. In the Volcano Manor there is a perfume bottle, a remarkably rare item in the lands between. It is hard to make, and essential to perfumer crafting and use. Nearby are the ashes of depraved perfumer Carman. He's described as a notably formidable perfumer whose strength rivaled that of heroes. It also states that he was in search of a secret physic of revivification.
Revivification? What does that mean? Sorry guys, I have to just look on Google. Revivification. Meaning. Bringing again into activity and prominence. Resurgence. Revitalization. Revival. So like immortality? Okay.
It would make sense.
Wait, why don't they just say that? Why don't they just say immortality instead of revivification? Oh, okay. Wow.
For him to travel to the Volcano Manor, where work has been done on living forever, with Rykard himself thinking he's not killable. Did Karman ally himself to Volcano Manor? Was he passing through? The word hero may hint at why he was interrupted in his work. As he can be summoned, this usually means that the ghost has some task left unfinished. It is likely he never found or invented the physic of revivification. Perhaps it is because the great hero was welcomed as family.
No, Hawkshaw, you have to say it with the voice. You know, family.
Humans receive some minor freedom thanks to the shattering. They are used as warriors, employed for their brute strength and armed with weapons to take advantage of it. The cleaver states that the weapon is cursed, so that the omen will not be armed for long after serving their purpose. Leyndell doesn't want them to be armed for longer than they are useful. The weapon is built to break. Before the shattering, the Erdtree condoned the hunting of omens, and secretly locked them away if they were royalty. Yet, in times of need, Leyndell stoops to compromise, and these same...
I mean, they've compromised with the perfumers and their activity on how to collect pollen from the Miranda plant. So they've been compromising since day one. It's no surprise.
creatures were given the chance to fight as warriors, and the chance to escape. The shattering goes on and on. The lands are ravaged, and no one is a victor. But the perfumers, the Omenkillers, pages, the deathbed companions, and the depraved perfumers all survive and are active when we arrive in the lands between. Let us look at the perfumers and their branching sects in the present day. We find that the Omenkillers continue to carry out their nightmarish tasks with brutal tenacity.
Yeah.
No one with cursed blood is safe. They still live somewhat symbiotically with perfumers and Miranda flowers, and one can only speculate whether their access to charred corpses leads to an expedient solution for the perfumers. The grottos are certainly filled with bags of what seems to be ash fertilizer.
Why do I see faces in the ash? Do you guys see those faces? Or is it just me? Oh, this is strange.
One perfumer we encounter seems to remain focused on healing. Tricia is a living perfumer who started the quest to heal misbegotten, omens, and all those viewed as impure. She is still alive, and during her lifetime she has only met with failure. Another travelling perfumer of no renown is searching for new gardens with new ingredients that might help cure the same mistreated groups. This traveller is working for a healer as an associate. As we find the armour on a corpse, he may have died along his journey. But we can assume there is at least a small community, or several, around Tricia, or others, who still strive to heal with their powers. Whether this will spread to inspire others in the lands between, or whether this small light of healing will go out, we do not know. We certainly do not help. Tricia has given up on the cure, and instead uses her craft to make the journey into death more gentle for these creatures. A tale which, as we have mentioned, is similar to the origins of the deathbed companions long ago. Like perfuming though, deathbed companionship is a practice which will also turn to heresy, as fear uses it against the Order. Capital perfumers are still going about their work, still researching and healing, but still military. They still have relationships with pages who have close contact with them, who pace the perfumers' libraries and laboratories, armed with perfumer bolts. while surviving gargoyles still attack with perfumer weaponry. The depraved perfumers are dotted around the world. More unnerving than their Leyndell counterparts, it is more than just their skin and eyes. Their outfit is unsettling. When we loot them, we discover that the image on their robe has a meaning. It is a curse invoked upon the Erd tree. Is it snakes wrapping around the tree? Flames? Or is it not a tree at all? Something more philosophical? Something more fundamental? Certainly, snakes are seen as traitors to the Erd tree, and it is very possible that Carman worked for Rykard, and that others gave their service as mercenaries on the battle for the Volcano Manor. Or perhaps when turned upside down, it is a candle tree, a forbidden design which is thought to represent a surreptitious prophecy of cardinal sin. They certainly take their heresy very seriously. One musical perfumer plays the same tune of the Leyndell pages.
Musical perfumer. Huh. I've heard this tune before. On Vati Vidya's video. Which one was it? I forgot which video it was. Oh gosh. Blessing of Despair, I think, right? Yeah. Yeah, I remember this tune. It's quite nice.
Further strengthening the idea that some depraved perfumers were originally from Leyndell and have strayed since. Nearby is an Omenkiller who we cannot reach without aggressing the depraved perfumer. Allies or coincidence, we will never know. Many depraved perfumers are at the Shaded Castle. While the castle has been taken over recently by Elmer of the Briar, it is doubtful the perfumers are there for him, as there is evidence that they are there because of Marley Mariah. What the head of the castle had been doing before losing control is worthy of speculation. His obsession with Melania and rot makes us wonder whether the bog outside the castle is his personal attempt at creating a rot swamp. There are also Miranda flowers throughout the castle, further putting into question the possible biological closeness between these flowers, humans, and the women who can bloom. But staying focused on perfumers, it is certain that there are abundant Miranda flowers to harvest, and it being a castle of execution, with unending corpses and human flesh for the flowers to feed on, means an unending supply of ingredients for the depraved to craft their perfumes. In exchange, it is possible they provide perfumes that help Marley Mariah, who is sickly born, and may also teach him some depraved arts. He uses a poison attack that neither looks like the perfumer's poison spray mist or poison mist incantation.
Okay.
Omenkillers are still active in the lands between. They are described as butchers of twisted conscience. It may be twisted as in evil, or it may be twisted as in knotted, blocked, silenced. In the present day, they are at least on good terms with the perfumers and Miranda flowers. Neither group is aggressive towards them, and they are found together at gardens and hideouts across the lands between.
They have an unspoken agreement amongst each other.
Their other allegiances are varied, if they exist at all.
I think they only focus on killing omens. There's no other agreement with other factions. No. Unless if they're not part of the perfumers and the Miranda plants, then I don't think they'll concern themselves with what everybody else is doing.
Speculative whether they allied with Gideon or Rykard, but the only thing for sure is that the Omenkillers continue to focus on what Rollo began, with some additions. Accursed blood that is unnatural and against the order of the Erd Tree is what started the Omen hunt, and another creature has arisen in history with accursed blood, Albinaurics. In the Albinauric village we find an Omenkiller among mounds of corpses, and a near identical scene is in Volcano Manor. Albinaurics, lower legs missing, lay slaughtered and strung up. Killing them and spilling their accursed blood is not enough. The Omenkillers burn them, watching over the fire diligently as they burn the traces of their accursed blood from the earth.
You guys might have suppressed your emotions, but what you're doing here, it just sounds personal. You know, it just sounds very personal. How you're destroying the bodies like this.
Were they always allowed fire to burn away accursed blood since the beginnings? They use it in combat and post-combat. Did they always have some flexibility with the Erdtree's rules, or is this a post-shattering development? For now, we don't know. Violent delights have violent ends. As wonderful as the effect of perfumes may have been, harvesting human suffering and death for use in healing is a foundation destined to fail.
Yes, this was the beginning of the end. The moment this came into being, it was the beginning of the end.
Add the descent to self-use, military use, and the relaxing of rules, and it's no surprise where we are now. Indeed, we may not have seen the end of heretical behaviour seeded by the perfumers. If being next to what you wish to heal for long enough led to Omenkillers, what other roles that were close to lords and gods might lead to violence? As the Dagger Talisman states, a sense of mercy is a catalyst for bloodlust. Not to mention the Misericord's warning, beware the killers clothed as men of compassion. But that's for another time. We feel the temptation of the power of perfumes ourselves. What is one living jar compared to the power of iron? The Leyndell perfumers themselves used human flesh. They stayed working with Omenkillers, even in the centre of one of their secret gardens closest to the capital. There is, shamefully, a treasure trove of living jar shards.
Not surprising. Not surprising at all.
Depravity is only depravity until it outcompetes. Then it becomes mainstream and everyone gets on board. The perfumers started with bad beginnings, the roots fed by pain, and the seeds of such a practice will surely and always breed heresy.
This was nice. This was really, really nice. Guys, that's it with Elden Ring Lore, Perfumers and Omenkillers, made on the Hawkshaw YouTube channel, requested by Carl Ken 0209. Depravity is only depravity until it out-competes and it becomes mainstream. That is very, very true in this case with the perfumers, They were doomed from the start. The moment they saw that they can only be as powerful as they wish to be if they have the pollen from the Miranda flowers, their fate was already sealed as an organization or as a group of people, And the capital city of Leyndell and their nobility and those who were in power, they turned a blind eye to what really happens or how the perfumers acquire their material to make their perfumes. They turned a blind eye. They just wanted what the perfumers could create for their own benefit. And, that just also exacerbated this depravity of this entire organization, And what came later on down the line also, how the different sects came into being and how the knowledge of being a perfumer was also spread across the lands in between and beyond, and how people took advantage of that, how people, wanted to become, something better than what was trained or taught before in the capital city. They wanted to use the perfuming arts in the highest of levels, and therefore the depravity also had to be cranked up to level 10, if I can say that, for them to achieve what they wanted. So, this entire thing was already doomed from the start. It was doomed from the start. It became a corruption that slowly crept up into the capital and strangled the capital city and all of its inhabitants, and also the lands in between, especially during the Civil War. That's when the Pandora box was opened, and anyone now can become a perfumer, and anyone can also now start harvesting the required items to become a perfumer, whether it's killing the jars or whether it's killing human beings and then feeding them off to the Miranda plants. It's all terrible. It's all just a disgusting and revolting type of situation. Yeah. But really, it just seems like there's no escape. There's no escape. If you want to become a perfumer, you have to get these ingredients. There's no way of escaping it, especially with the Miranda plant, because it's the basis, it's the foundation block that holds all the other spices or material for you to create your perfume. So yeah, there's no escape, really. And this was interesting, though. This was interesting to hear about this. I don't know whether it's a class or is it something that you develop as a skill in the game. I'm not entirely sure about that yet. But yes, it was really interesting to hear about it. And thank you again to CarlKen0209 for requesting that I should react to this video. Thank you to Hawkshaw for compiling and creating this great Elden Ring content. And guys, remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Hawkshaw's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay?